Hello, children of God. How are you doing? I hope you all are doing fine and you all are keeping safe. Welcome to the CPA Shadrack show, the #1 online show that teaches you how to create and manage wealth. On today's episode, we have an amazing guest with us. The other time he was telling me a story where he was able to reject a very huge free offer, and I was wondering why he would do that and how he was able to do that. And that is why I decided to look for him so that he can be able to tell me more about what happened on that day and how it happened and how he went about it. CPA Shadrack, how are you doing?
I'm very fine, I'm blessed and highly favored.
That is always his response anytime you ask him how he is doing. I would like to know, who is CPA Shadrack?
Thank you very much. CPA Shadrack Adino is my name. I'm a wealth creation and management expert. I'm also a practicing auditor and a financial management consultant.
You mentioned something about financial management consultant. How about financial management consultancy? What does it entail?
Thank you very much. I want to subdivide financial management into two categories. There is organizational financial management and there is personal financial management. Now, when I talk about personal financial management, actually, it is part of wealth creation and management that we do. We advise individuals on how to create wealth, how to create finances, and how to manage their finances. That is part one under personal financial management. The second part is about organizational financial management. Under organizational financial management, we advise organizations on how they can create wealth again, how they can plan for their monies, how they can manage their monies as an organization to ensure that monies that they receive is profitable and is useful for those organizations.
Wow, thank you so much for that. There is something that you haven't mentioned that me, who has known you for quite some time, knows that you always say. You didn't tell us you're born again Christian.
Thank you. Apart from being a professional practicing auditor, I'm also a born-again child of God, and I'm also a pastor. Thank you for reminding me about that.
Thank you so much. So CPA Shadrack, on to our today's episode. The reason why we are here today, you told me, you once were telling me a story how you rejected an offer, a free offer. And the way you told me, that was a very huge offer that not most of us can do. I would like to know, when was that?
Thank you very much for that question. The actual time that this thing happened was around the year 2010. And if you allow me, I'll give you a very short story on how it started. It happened during the time that I was still engaged in a certain audit firm as an audit and training services manager. My responsibility in that position were to be in charge of special audits and to be in charge of forensic audits. And during that time, our firm got information from UK that a recipient of their funds was somehow mismanaging the funds that they were granted. That is when I was appointed to be in charge of that forensic audit. So it happened way in the year 2010.
Okay, so you have been an auditor since 2010 or years before 2010?
Thank you. To be very precise, my audit work did not begin in 2010. 2010 was just a time when that incident took place and I was assigned a responsibility to go and carry out that audit. So my audit profession began way in the year 2008. That is, to be precise, about when the audit work began.
Wow. I have always heard these works concerning auditing. They are well-paying job, right? I know of a certain something auditing with the government, and I think they pay nice. I hope you were living a good life by then.
You're very right. Audit is a profession that pays well, depending on where you are carrying out the audit assignment. Now, when you're doing an audit with a private firm, it depends on how much the profit the private firm is earning. So your salary will be determined by the amount of resources the private audit firm is generating. But when you are hired as an auditor in the government, you will get salary depending on the government salary scale. So it varies. Sometimes it pays a lot, sometimes it pays moderately. But I want to say it is a profession that pays well, fairly well.
Okay, CPA Shadrack. Now I just want us to go straight and to why you are here. How much was this offer that you rejected?
Thank you. Now, I don't know whether to call it an offer, but as far as I'm concerned with my experience in such activities, I want to call it a bribe. The total bribe that I was offered was 1.5 million Kenya shillings. And that was not the first offer that I was given. Actually, it started by being 1.2 million. Then as the work was progressing, it ended up being 1.5 million Kenya shillings.
That is exactly what I want you to tell us more about. How it happened, how you ended up being given such a huge amount of money as a bribe.
Thank you very much. Now, as I have explained when I was beginning to introduce myself, now, a firm from UK had given a grant to a non-profit organization here in Kenya. Now, they caught wind, and I don't know how they caught wind, that this recipient of their grant was mismanaging their money. So our firm was engaged to go and find out more. Actually, to be precise, the auditing firm where I was working was hired to go and carry out a forensic audit. Then I was appointed to go and head the team that was carrying out the forensic audit in this firm. Now, when I entered that firm, as usual, we were given records which we were supposed to verify and find out whether some foul play or financial malpractice had taken place. Now, on day one, the gentleman called me to his office. And then we sat down and started talking. I had just begun the audit exercise. Then he said, Shadrach, I know you've seen certain things that have been going on in this organization, but I want us to have a deal. If you write a bad report about me and about the organization, the most likely action that the owner of the funds will do will be to discontinue the funding. Now, that is not the only consequence of your report. The other thing that they will do is that I'm going to be fired. I don't want to lose this job. I don't want them to cut off the funding. Please help me and write a good report about me. I'm willing to offer you 1.2 million Kenya shillings. And this is how 1.2 million Kenya shillings came about. The gentleman told me that I am employed as the head of this organization and I earn a salary of 600,000 shillings per month. I'm willing to give you my 2 months salary. Please help me. And that is how I calculated 600,000 shillings per month times 2 months was 1.2 million Kenya shillings. That is how the thing came about.
Wow. I mentioned something earlier, and you have just confirmed to us that auditing is a well-paying job. For you to have rejected such amount of money, were you a billionaire? How much were you earning?
Thank you very much. I want to be very precise and very clear. I was not a billionaire. I would not consider myself at that time to be a rich person. In fact, to be very honest with you, that was a time that I was still going back to college. And then most or a good fraction of my salary I was spending in college. And therefore, I was still at the time surviving in the slums of Kibera. Yes, at that kind of life and in the slums of Kibera, I still said no to that offer of 1.2 million Kenya shillings.
That must be the eighth wonder of the world. Because living in the slums of Kibera, you told me you were living in an iron sheet, 10 by 10, right?
Yes, yes.
So you live in an iron sheet house and then you refuse to take a bribe that would make you go to Runda in a span of a second. How did you feel after rejecting that?
Thank you. I want to be very clear that yes, I was staying in the slums of Kibera when that offer of 1.2 million Kenya shillings came. But my heart's conviction told me that automatically this is not for you. Why? Because my heart was telling me that no, that is not the right way of getting wealth. My heart convicted me and told me no, if you accept that kind of offer today, it is going to close doors for you for better wealth to come. So I was looking at the consequences of receiving that offer, on what impact it would create on my future. So looking at today and looking at tomorrow, I decided to reject the proceeds of wickedness today, hoping for a better proceed tomorrow. So that is why I said no.
Okay, that is nice. So CPA Shadrack, I just want to know, did you regret that night after rejecting that offer, having rejected 1.2 million, and then you're going back to your slum when you rejected such a huge amount of money? Did you regret? Did you have a sense of regret?
Thank you for that question. I want to say I did not regret, and even currently I do not regret. This is the reason why I did not regret. In fact, I went back home that night and became very peaceful because I was considering that offer as a hurdle in my life for the future. So having overcome it, having turned it down, I became very peaceful knowing that I'm on the right track to my future. So I became very peaceful without regretting anything.
Wow, it's okay. Now, one thing I would like to know, you rejected a 1.2 million offer, or bribe as you call it, from someone who was working in a certain organization as well. For them to offer you 1.2 million, that was a huge amount of money during that time, 2010, I hope so. Were you not scared of your security? Because this person was trying to secure his job and his profession, but you're here in his opinion, you just want to ruin things for him. Were you scared of your security?
I like that question. It is very natural for you going through such a circumstance to feel scared for your life. Fortunately for me, I never got scared because I had a conviction within me that I'm very safe, because the one that guided me into rejecting it is God, and I believe God with me, I am safe. God inside me makes me safe. So I want to be very, very straight to say that I never got scared, I never feared, because I knew rejecting that offer meant that I'm still right with God, and therefore right with God means I'm still under God's protection. So I never got scared.
Okay. Another thing I would like to know, have you ever been in contact with this person ever again since that fateful day?
Let me say, fortunately, that is the last time I met with him, and that is the last time I heard from him. We've never been in touch with him. We've never communicated with him from that day forward.
Okay. Thank you. Another thing I would like to know about that same thing. You know, as Africans or as Kenyans, if you're sent to do a certain job and then you do it according to your employer's expectations, but then you're trying to ruin the person you met there, they tend to feel that if you do this, maybe you're going to get a promotion or something. Were you promoted after giving back the results? And definitely this man ruined his profession, and I don't know how it went, but did you get a promotion, or was your pay increased, or what prize did you get?
Thank you for that question once again. I want to be categorical that after maintaining my integrity, and I want to clarify that I was doing it both for my employer I was doing it for my God. Remember, I told you that I'm a born-again child of God and a pastor. And number 3, I was doing it for myself. Now, why for myself? I knew that if I succumbed to that temptation, if I fell into that trap, it would ruin my tomorrow. So I was doing it for myself, and because I overcame it by turning it down, I knew at that time that I had secured my future. Number 2, if I was doing it for my employer, I was maintaining the image, the good reputation of my employer, knowing that if I could have succumbed or fallen to that temptation, I would be ruining the good name of my employer. Number 3, I knew that I was doing it for God because I knew God was watching. If I disappointed my God by succumbing to that pressure, I would not be right with God, and I would miss everything that God has promised to his children. So I never regretted.
Wow, you have mentioned something that, like, you knew you had secured your future after turning down the bribe, right?
Yes.
I hope you're living in your future right now.
Yes.
Now tell us, what are some of the things you feel you enjoy right now in your future that you secured during that time?
Yes. And just before I go to what I'm experiencing in my future, which I'm calling today. Today is the future I was seeing during that time. Let me just give you a short explanation or narration how those things happened and how they ended. Now, on day 1, I just said the gentleman sat me down and offered his 2 months salary, which in making calculation was adding up to 1.2 million Kenya shillings. Now, how did I respond to him? I think the listeners would want to know, having been offered this amount of money, how did I respond? Now, I want to say very simply that I did not just turn it down directly. I turned it down indirectly. Now, this is how I turned it down. I became a gentleman who was willing to negotiate. I said, fine, this is an offer of 1.2 million. I don't reject it. I don't refuse it, but please give me time. I've just begun the audit exercise. I don't even know what is in these records. So allow me to continue with my work. Once I finish with my work, then we can come back and negotiate. So the gentleman was very happy with that response. Then I continued with my work for 1 or 2, 3 more days. Then the gentleman became more anxious, very suspicious, trying to find out what I've found in the record so far. Yes, things were not good in that record. I had realized, I had detected that some lots of dollars had been diverted from the purpose for which the money was granted to that non-profit organization. Then he told me that, Shadrach, I know you found stuff in this place. Please, I'm willing to add you more. I was offering you 1.2 million shillings in the beginning, but now I'm willing to give you 1.5 million shillings. Only if you assure me that you will write a good report about me and about the organization. Again, I told him, I don't reject that offer. I'm willing to take the offer. But please give me time to finalize the work. Then we are going to come back. I table the evidence and we agree on the way forward. That is how it was upscaled from 1.2 million shillings to 1.5 million shillings. When I finalized the audit, the forensic audit, I told him, no, let me not give you this report now. Let me go back to our office and I give the report back to my boss. And therefore, let the boss see this report and the boss will call you to the office for us to discuss and talk. The gentleman accepted and released me happily, hoping that we will at that time negotiate. Unfortunately, when I finalized the audit, and I say unfortunately for him, I finalized the forensic audit, went back to the office and handed over the report to my boss, the managing partner of that firm by then it was out of my hands. I thought that was very important for the listeners to get to know how it ended. Now, once the report was in the hands of my boss, I had washed my hands. I had at least succeeded in rejecting the bribe. The report was now up to my boss to negotiate or not to negotiate. But as far as my level was concerned as the lead for forensic auditor, at least God helped me to overcome the temptation of bribe. Now let me come back to now, which we are calling my future. I want to assure the listeners that I don't regret. Yes, I turned down the offer or the bribe of 1.2 million shillings because I was looking at my future, which is today. Can I assure you, I no longer live in Kibera, because soon after that, God, who saw my heart, opened doors of consultancies, opened doors of contracts, and God rewarded me with money that was much more than the 1.5 million shillings in bribe. That is what is giving me assurance and courage that when somebody turns down proceeds of wickedness, better things will follow. It may take time, but ultimately better things will follow when you maintain your integrity. So that is why I rejoice that I turned that offer, and I have never lost what God has promised to his children.
Wow, I like that. Let me ask you, how about if you never achieved all this that you have in your future right now? If you are not living the life you're living right now, you still won't have regretted?
Thank you for that question. I think the listeners would want to know, what is it that I have achieved since turning down that offer? I want to tell the listeners that a few years after rejecting that bribe, God has blessed me with a home where I stay in Nairobi. God has blessed me with a home up country. God has blessed me with a car. And that added together is much more than the bribe that I turned down. And my heart is telling me that if I could have received that bribe of 1.5 million, it could have closed the doors of what I now have now. I could not have received the house I stay in Nairobi. I could not have received the house I have at home. I could not have received the vehicles. I could not have received the money to take my children to school. Therefore, I still thank God that at least I rejected that small offer, and God has rewarded me by giving me this big blessing that I now have. Now, the question that you've just asked me is, suppose I had not achieved what I have now, could I have regretted? My answer is no. Because remember, I told you at the beginning that I'm a born-again child of God. As a born-again child of God, there is a much bigger, better life to come than the life in this world. So even if I could have continued to stay in the slums of Kibera, I could still be very happy knowing that I have overcome a temptation that would close for me the doors of going to the next life. So I would not have regretted.
Wow, that is going to be technical for some of you or some of us to understand. Unless we get deep into the same God he's talking about, that is when you'll get to know that there is far much better life ahead of us. That is what he's trying to tell us, that even if he won't have achieved what he has right now, he still won't have regretted, because he knew he had overcome some temptation, and there is a life ahead that is awaiting. Now, let me ask you, if time was to be reversed right now,
yes,
would you take the offer?
Thank you for that question. If time would have been reversed, and looking at the hard economic times that is facing Kenyan population at this time, my answer is very simple. The answer remains no, I would not have accepted that offer. Why? Because my conviction tells me that I don't depend on bribe to be alive. My conviction still tells me that my life depends on God and God alone. Therefore, even if I would get that similar opportunity today, my answer would remain the same. Why? Because the person who indwells me also went through the same temptation. Remember, for those of you that read the Bible, Jesus was taken to that mountain and he was shown all the wealth of this world. And the devil told Jesus, if only you will bow down and worship me, I would give you half of this. That Jesus said, no, you are only supposed to bow down and worship God alone. So he turned down the offer from the devil. The same Jesus who turned down the offer from the devil dwells in me. If I would get a similar opportunity to get 1.5 million shillings in bribe, that Jesus would still empower me to reject it. The answer will still remain the same. No to proceeds of wickedness, no to bribe.
Hey, take a glass of water.
Thank
That
you.
is so bold of you.
Thank you.
I know not all of us would be doing that. CPA Shadrack, let me ask you this. Yeah, are there any other situations or scenarios where you have had such temptations ever again?
Thank you. My profession is very tempting. The audit profession where I serve is very tempting. In fact, that was not an isolated case. I have gone through similar temptations elsewhere. So the answer is yes, there are a number of others that I've gone through.
Wow. Now that you have told us that was not an isolated case, can you be able to tell us more of other cases that happened, maybe one or two, how it happened, where it happened, and where?
Thank you. Yes, for sure, that was not an isolated case. I've gone through many other cases in our audit profession, many other offers, and let me not call them offers, many other temptations of bribe. A case that I would want to tell the audience is a case that happened in Rift Valley, and precisely North Rift. I was leading an infrastructural audit, which was sponsored by a government agency, specifically Kenya Roads Board. And when I went to this place, this town, please allow me not to say where, for the sake of these people's identity, we entered and began the audit exercise. And after 2 days, suddenly, a finance manager came to me and offered me a sealed brown envelope in our hotel room. Now, I thought critically about this envelope, and I said, do I return the envelope or do I accept the envelope? It was a brown, fat envelope. I don't know how much was in it. So my instinct told me, if you reject this envelope, your life will be in danger in this place. So the wise thing that you should do is to accept the envelope. And that is exactly what I did. I accepted it happily without showing signs of disappointment and kept it, and we continued with the audit exercise.
Seems like you and bribes are unlike poles, so you are always attracting each other. How did it end after not accepting?
Thank you. I want to make it very clear that I did not reject it. I accepted it, received the brown envelope, and kept it. Then I continued with the audit exercise. Now what happened is that we took about 1 week in that same place. Now we worked, and for sure there were problems of financial mismanagement. There were financial misappropriations. Now, as the audit practice is, we always hold a meeting when we are starting, and we always hold a meeting when we are exiting. So we held an exit meeting at the end of this exercise. Now my heart was telling me, it is not right for you to keep this envelope. So what did I do? I carried the envelope with me to the exit meeting. And we discussed and discussed. When we were reaching conclusion, suddenly I removed the envelope from my bag and hand it over to the very finance manager that gave it to me on that day.
Okay. I don't really know if you have mentioned to us how much was on that envelope.
Very good. Yes, for sure. I counted the amount of money that was in that envelope. And it was an envelope of then, by that time, 20,000 Kenya shillings, which I again sealed properly and returned to the finance manager.
Okay. CPA Shadrack, that is a very nice show we have had with you. I just want you to give us a parting shot. What would you advise people? Would you tell people to always keep on rejecting bribes without knowing what the future holds for them? Or they just take and pray and ask God for forgiveness? Or what would you tell people?
Thank you for that very good question. I am aware that temptations of bribe is very enormous, quite numerous, especially where people work. And it is quite numerous because many of us would want to get rich quickly. Many of us do not wait. They would rather use shortcuts to where they want God to take them to. If you ask me what I would advise people that are going through similar temptations, I would tell them, please, have the courage to say no to proceeds of wickedness. Have the courage to reject bribes. Have the courage to reject corruption. Because what I know from my conviction, when you use a shortcut to where you want to go to, that shortcut will not enable you to reach your destiny. That shortcut has a way of destroying people's destiny. So my advice to young people or people that could be going through similar temptations is that please mind about your future. Don't look at today. You may get rich today through bribes, but it will spoil your future. If you want a stable future, reject those corruption proceeds, reject those wickedness proceeds, and secure your future.
Wow. He mentioned something earlier, like he has a home in the village, he has a house in Kitengela. We are soon yet to see the house he has in the village. So guys, what you have to tell you is to keep on subscribing, keep on liking, keep on watching. A lot more are yet to come. And that was CPA Shadrack Show. Thank you.
Thank you.